Hello and welcome to the Commissioner's Report. I'm your host, Jeff Foley, and I'm joined today by Commissioner George Lindsey. Commissioner Lindsey, thanks for being here.
My privilege, thank you.
I'm a little saddened. This is the last time we'll get to do this.
It is. It's been my privilege to serve 12 years on the County Commission, and with term limits, my time is up. So, but I'm privileged to have been part of the process for the last 12 years.
12 years is a lot of time as a county commissioner, and I know you well enough to know that you know exactly how much time you have left.
26 days.
I knew you would have an answer for that. Commissioner, let's start by talking a little bit about what led you down to the path of becoming a county commissioner. It wasn't something you needed to do.
No, my dad instilled in me many, many years ago an appreciation for history and civics, and so I've been attracted to that. I worked for local government for many years in my early career, and had an appreciation for the services and limitations of public service. Then I was in the private sector for many decades, so I watched it from afar and was attracted to that civics responsibility and wanted to bring my knowledge and experience to the process. I learned many years ago in both public and private sector that every day somewhere, some either elected official or staff member or some bureaucracy is writing rules and regulations to regulate your avocation or your vocation. And if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. So I wanted to have a seat at the table and represent my thoughts and experience, and hopefully I brought something to the table to do that.
And in doing so, you also represent 800,000 people in Polk County, helping to make decisions that shape their lives as well. Does that feel like a big responsibility? It
absolutely is. And when you think about the county being over 800,000 and 5 county commissioners, and we're elected at large, the entire county, we represent more people than a congressman represents. We represent more people than a state senator represents, and far more people than a state representative represents. So it's a big responsibility, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that we are elected at large, and we have to represent the interest across the county in its entirety, not pit one side against the other.
So when you first came into this position, I'm sure you had ideas about what the job would be and what it would require from you. How has the experience differed from what you first thought it would be?
It's much more of a commitment than most people think. The board meets on the first and third Tuesday. Well, I can do that. Well, there's also an agenda study session. There's also committee meetings. There are also social obligations. There are also other events that need representation by the county. So the time commitment is substantially greater than just those first and third Tuesday mornings. But it's fun. It gives you a chance to have dialogue with a variety of constituents across the county. And with constituents, I include our city partners. The relationship between the county and the city right now is better than it ever has been. So some of the old timers will recall there was a time when there appeared to be a wall between east and west part of the county, and pitting one city against the other or the counties against the cities. Those walls have come down. Now they come down to the point now we can step over them, but there's still some barriers that are provincial for each jurisdiction, and as it should be. They represent their particular communities and their sense of value and their history and the heritage of those communities. Someone asked if it would be more efficient to consolidate government. Of course it'd be more efficient, but you lose that identity, an identity that none of the cities or the county is willing to sacrifice for efficiency. Government's not always the most efficient, not always the most expedient, but major decisions should be deliberative and thoughtful and not knee-jerk reactions to the issues of a particular day.
It's interesting, the relationship between the county and some of the municipalities reminds me in some ways of familial relationships with, brothers and siblings and everybody kind of fighting for a seat sometimes.
Well, I would characterize it as cousins.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, but every city resident is a county resident. So we represent their interest. The cities have their core services that they're most proud of. And I think we've come to recognize where we are complementary. Particularly the smaller cities are struggling for a variety of reasons, but the county has reached out to help some of the small cities with their fleet services or building inspection or some other services that is more cost efficient for the county to perform on their behalf.
And I know I saw firsthand during Hurricane Milton, I saw the county and the cities working very closely together and kind of putting those separate identities aside when it benefits the residents.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The experience of Milton just a few weeks ago, I really appreciate the team that comes together and makes all that happen. And when you see that room that's filled with representatives from every city and every agency pulling in the same direction, it's amazing. It is an orchestra that comes together and makes things happen for the benefit. And there's no territorial disputes. It's what does it take to get the job done?
It's a pretty incredible sight to see. So 12 years as a county commissioner, we're never going to get to everything you did, but let's hit on some of the highlights. Let's talk about a few of the things that were important to you that you helped make happen. I know, I've got a little list of things that we discussed. I would love to start by talking about the Safe Haven program and how did that generate and why was it important to you and what is the program?
Weeks into my first term, there was a situation where a young lady had an unplanned pregnancy and a birth, and it was a horrible situation in which she didn't know what to do, and that infant died. That just touched my heart. And as a father of two adopted sons, I had an appreciation for birth mothers and not always having the opportunity to, or the skills or the will or the demeanor to raise a child. Safe Haven is a message to those young ladies who find themselves in that position. Don't take a drastic step. Take that newborn and leave it at a fire station across the county. No questions asked, no persecution, no prosecution, no questions asked. Give that child a life. Give that child the opportunity to be in the hands and the arms of a loving family. And allow them the comfort to know that that child will be taken care of. Now, we haven't got as much attention as I had hoped, but it has started the process, and it is a slow process. So, knowing that we spread the word, we put the signs on each station designated as a safe haven place, is a big step in the right direction. And I'm told there's been several dozen of those cases that occurred in the last 12 years where infants have been dropped off either at an emergency room, fire station, and those infants have gone on to be adopted by loving parents.
And speaking in a very non-professional, speaking from a non-professional viewpoint here, I think if that program has helped keep one child alive, it's been worth your efforts.
Absolutely. Ours is just a small role in the Safe Haven arena, but it's spreading the word and letting folks know, the young ladies that find themselves in that situation, that there is relief, there is help, and don't take that drastic step.
Well, you should be very proud of helping to get that through. Switching gears, I think many politicians have gone into office saying they're going to reduce taxes. I don't know how many we can say have actually done it, but you have helped make that happen, correct?
Yes, and nothing that happens at the county commission doesn't happen without the majority of a full board. So these are board accomplishments, not my accomplishments. But recently, last fiscal year, and the fiscal year we're in now, and the fiscal year we're about to go in, we have instructed the county staff to reduce the homestead millage by 3% a year ago, current year, and 1% going into next year. And we're able to do that because there were unappropriated funds at the end of the fiscal year, a buzzword for money left over. The money left over is attributed to the growth in our tax base and revenues that we receive from property taxes and other revenues. So we were able to roll that back. It's not a big number, but it shows a fiscal responsibility to live within our means, and when we have good times, to share it with the folks that paid it. As growth begins to slow down and values begin to not rise as quickly, I think the opportunities to do that will be minimal in the future. But at least during this short period, we did have that opportunity and chose to do so.
And I think if you read headlines today, you would see that it's pretty rare that a county our size would be on such solid financial footing as it is now. And that's going to be orchestrated by the board. It
is. And I'm proud of that role. And we set as a priority to fund reserves. We have strong bond rating. We have good reserves, good fiscal management, in concert with the clerk of the court, who is the controller for the county commission. Again, that consolidated effort has really put Polk County on a very, very strong foundation. There will be a lot of expenses associated with the hurricane that we just experienced. But we have the reserves to pay for the cleanup and the road repairs and roof repairs and whatever to the county assets. And then we'll apply for the reimbursement from the state and federal governments at a later date. We don't have the privilege of waiting until those dollars come. We have the comfort of knowing that we got money in the bank to address those issues immediately and put people back on a sound footing as quickly as possible. And there's still suffering going on. Each day is a little less. But we've got the wherewithal, the resources, the revenues, the people, the equipment to respond accordingly and then seek reimbursement from the state and feds at a later date.
And I have read and I've heard from Sheriff Grady Judd that crime is at the lowest it's been in Polk County in 50 years. I know that people sometimes move here because they feel like it's such a safe place to be. That obviously doesn't happen without law enforcement receiving support and the funding that they need. So how much of a priority has public safety been throughout your career?
Public safety is always number one. That's the first thing that we focus on. And public safety includes not only supporting the sheriff and the jail and all the things that he has to do, including school crossing guards, guardians on the campuses of the various schools, and everything under his control, but also the Polk County Fire Rescue is a big part of the budget process and a big part, with over about 120,000 calls a year. That's an incredible number. We have a lot of young, dedicated firefighters, paramedics that respond 24/7, 365. They take their job serious, and we want to give them the tools and the resources to do their job quickly and efficiently. We've got a good medical examiner that watches over all the paramedics, makes sure all the protocols are as they should be and current and up to date, leading edge in some cases. So we're proud of their commitment. We've been able to build, I think we're up to 12 or 14 new fire stations. When I first came on board, there were some fire stations that were pretty, the word that comes to mind is dilapidated. There was one station in Mulberry that was working out of a 25-year-old double-wide mobile home. And the fire truck was under an aluminum canopy out front. The PT equipment the firefighters and paramedics used for physical training had to be outside because the floor of the mobile home wouldn't support the weight of the equipment. That's gone. We got a brand new fire station there in Mulberry. We also have a joint service agreement with the city of Mulberry to provide service for that community. But that was just the first one that came about during my time here. And a dozen followed. State-of-the-art, new facilities. We adopted a footprint, a prototype, and then replicated that prototype on different sites throughout the county. again, showing the economies of replication rather than duplication.
So it's interesting, as the county grows at the speed with which it has, you obviously have to be thinking constantly about where infrastructure needs to be, trying to get ahead of it, in some cases trying to catch up with it. And that brings me to water. Talk to me about what you have done as a commissioner to try to ensure that future generations have drinking water.
Well, it's odd that we were talking about water at a time that some people are still standing in 3 feet of water in their front yard. But again, these are cyclical. And the water shortage for fresh water, of course, is a Florida aquifer, the ground under our feet. The Water Management District that issues permits to local utilities to withdraw that water came to the realization that the sum of all the permits in Polk County exceeded the capacity of the aquifer to meet that demand. So we had to look for alternative water supplies. And with the help of the co-op, the Polk Regional Water Cooperative, the cities and the county, and the backing and the support of the Water Management District, we have created that co-op. And I think that has, again, brought the counties and the cities closer together, which effectively created a wholesale water supply that then will be made available to the municipalities. Their participation is prorated based on how much water they take over time. And this, again, is a long-term investment. The question is, well, why should current customers pay for this long-term investment? Well, somebody paid for the investment we're enjoying today 20 and 25 years ago. So they paid forward. Now it's time for us to pay forward. And each of our departments, whether it's water, utilities, fleet, everything, they have a rolling 5-year capital plan, and so that hopefully we don't get behind the curve too much, and we have thought about the improvements necessary to stay ahead of the growth.
So we'll talk about the landfill in a second, and leading into that, I'm curious to know if you had any idea coming into this job how much you would have to understand technology and science as a commissioner.
Very much so. I underestimated that. I underestimated the science associated with what we used to call just the landfill. The landfill being you go dig a hole, you dump garbage in it, and then you cover it up. Well, those days are long gone. It is a science. Predecessor commissions saw the wisdom of acquiring a substantial acreage, which we know is near the Polk Parkway, that has 40 or 50 or 60 years of capacity at that one location. But it is a science in order to capture it's called leachate. It's the water and the liquids that drain out of the garbage and everything we throw in there. Have to collect that. It has to be treated. It can't just go into the surface water, can't go into groundwater. There's a very thick membrane below all of that to capture it, to direct it. It's treated. Now with the work at the University of Florida, we've created a wetland, artificial wetland to the north side of the landfill, so that treated water then it migrates to the north. It goes through the plant photosynthesis process and transvaporation to clean up that and create and maintain a wetland feature. We're also on the early stages of compressed natural gas. Garbage and all that stuff that goes in there creates methane. And there's a method to capture that methane, to compress it, and then burn it as a fuel. So it's an exciting process. It's very technical, and we got dedicated people associated with it that understand it. And working with professionals in the other fields like IFAS and the University of Florida puts us on the cutting edge.
And I would think that working to understand these issues enough that you can decide if they're good for the county is probably part of what keeps a part-time job from being a part-time job.
Yes, it is. You can do as little or as much as you choose to do as an elected official. My experience is most people take it serious and dedicate the time and resources and the effort to understand the issues and make the decisions for the best interests of all the county to move us forward.
Yeah, these are significant issues. It feels like we're running down a list of best hits on the back of a record album. Talk to me a little bit about your involvement with the opioid litigation.
Well, that was a national effort where cities and counties and states joined suit, a class action suit against the pharmaceutical industry. And the then county attorney, Michael Craig, came to I think I was chairman at the time, asking, should we join this class action lawsuit? And I said, absolutely. That our people have suffered from the abuses in that industry. Our jails are overrun. Our jail is the single largest mental health facility and drug rehab facility in the county. So anything we can do to mitigate that, let's pursue it. Of course, all the other commissioners signed on absolutely for the same reason. And so we've, with Michael's leadership and working with the other attorneys associated with this class action, we were successful as a class. And the payment to the county over the next 17 years will be about $1 million a year. And again, we want to make sure that we use the money in a silo to make sure it reaches the most people that are most disadvantaged in this situation, as opposed to horizontal and diluting it over too many agencies and not getting the service to the individuals. So the county has taken the lead in that, and I'm proud of our participation.
So you spend time thinking about how those dollars are best spent and how you can make sure that it impacts the people that need help.
And the most people, that's correct.
I know that you served on the canvassing board. Can you talk to me about what a canvassing board is and what you've done there?
I did have the privilege of serving on the elections canvassing board on 3 occasions. And constitutionally, or statutorily, I think, the canvassing board is made up of the supervisor of elections, a circuit judge, and a county commissioner. Now, in this case, because the supervisor is on the ballot, she has to recuse, and there's in this case, upcoming election, there'll be 2 judges. But it's the canvassing board's job to oversee the election process, and it enhances as the elections come closer and the mail-in ballots come in. When the ballots come in, mail-in ballots, there's 2 people on the staff, 1R, 1D, or 1R and 1I, bipartisan. They look at is there something about the signature that raises questions? Then it goes over in this pile. If everything is all right and the signature on the envelope matches the signature on file, is counted and put in this pile. So those that have questions come to the canvassing board to mediate, to look at it. What is the voter's intent? Sometimes, we're supposed to mark the bubble. Sometimes people will check the bubble. Well, the voter's intent is clear. The reader didn't pick it up because it wasn't a bubble. So what is the voter's intent? Now, if they've checked 2 boxes in the same race, we can't count that because that voter's intent is not clear. But it is the people's voice at that table to make sure that every possible vote can be counted properly. Sometimes you will see a signature that's on file doesn't quite match the signature on the ballot, and you have to make a judgment call. Is it age that caused that deterioration, or is it the fact that your record on file is 20 years old and your signature has changed slightly? But there's enough similarities to say, yes, this is a legitimate ballot. Some of them I've seen, it's clear it's not the same person. It is not the same signature. And in that case, those ballots are never opened because the signature is on the outside of the envelope. So we don't know how they voted, but those ballots are not counted. They're set aside and dealt with later. So it was a privilege to be part of that process. And I will tell you that I'm proud of Polk County. Anytime the supervisor of elections has asked for appropriations for upgraded equipment or whatever it is, in order not to fall behind technology, that's always been approved.
A silly question, forgive me, but so you signed up voluntarily to be on the canvassing board?
It's a committee appointment, and one occasion the incumbent was on the ballot several years ago, and so I was the alternate in that case. Okay,
it's that seems like a job that has taken on more and more significance with each passing year.
More significance, more scrutiny, as it should, and it is the essence of what democracy is all about, to make sure that process is uncompromised.
So I know we're only hitting the tip of the iceberg. 12 years is a lot of work. Is there anything I'm missing that you want to recap or you want to reminisce on?
It's been a privilege to serve. As we stated earlier, it's much more than I anticipated, even though I thought I brought a lot of background and history to the process. But I've enjoyed being part of it. I'm more proud of the staff at every level throughout this organization, over 2,000 employees, including the constitutionals, how dedicated they are to their task. No more obvious than when we all gather around for emergency operation process. But they're a good, talented, dedicated team to their responsibilities, and I'm just proud to have a small part in that.
And Commissioner Lindsey, talk to me a little bit about whether or not there's anything that you've worked on that you're hoping comes back to the table someday, or wheels you've set in motion that you hope get revisited.
Well, I was reluctant to make it part of this conversation, but my disappointment, although I've had a lot of things that I'm very proud of, my disappointment has been the failure to get the half-cent sales tax on the ballot for transportation. In spite of 17 city commissioners, mayors, and city managers supporting just putting it on the ballot and let the people decide. Transportation is our biggest challenge. And the state law says you cannot stop growth for the absence of transportation capacity. You can't do that. The law prohibits that. So that is a requirement that is pivotal. And I think there is no dedicated funding source of the magnitude necessary to address all the issues across the county. And this was a relatively harmless tax also, that would have shared revenues with the cities to address their issues. But time will tell. Maybe it'll come back another time, or somebody come up with some other bright idea. But under the circumstances today, there is no funding source to meet the needs and the future demands in transportation. And I think if you ask the general population across the county, name one, recognizing that public safety is already addressed. That's not an unmet need. What unmet need most faces local government? And I think the overwhelming majority would say transportation.
Mm. What would you like your predecessor to know about the job and the role? What heads up would you give them?
There's two general principles. Stay in your lane, read the directions, and understand that this is a long, slow process and things don't happen instantaneously. So we'll see how those successors address those issues.
Well, I thank you for the job you've done for the last dozen years. I wish you luck in your next adventure, your next career, whatever you decide to do, and I wish you a happy birthday today.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad I get to share that with you. Anything you want to add before we end our show?
It's been a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's it for this episode of the Commissioner's Report. I'm your host, Jeff Foley, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe and like our social media.